Michael, people don't need to know where you've been on the show, even though I just told them. People need to know where the hell you've been at Northwest Stadium because you missed a couple of games and then things went sideways and then you show up yesterday and there you are sitting to my left and 42-19 later, bye-bye losing streak. Is this as simple as just getting you to show up to work?
I think sometimes you feel underappreciated and so you say, okay, I get that. Like people are saying, oh, it's Jaden Daniels, he's doing good things, or oh, it's Dan Quinn changing the culture, whatever. And so I think I kind of had to show everybody, and I won't do it again, don't worry. But I had to prove my point that MP in the audience is a major factor each week in who wins and who loses these football games.
Okay, well then let's get. You said you're not going to do it again. Are you committing to being at Northwest Stadium? Also, are you going to any of the road games for the rest of the season after the bye?
I will not be in New Orleans, but if we want to pass the hat around, I'm certainly not opposed to going to New Orleans, Craig. It would be no major inconvenience for me. If your listeners wanted to fund a trip to get me down to New Orleans, maybe throw a little something in so I could have something to eat. You know, I know it's not much of a food town, but I could probably find something to make do.
Yeah.
We could find a way.
Michael, do you think that perhaps the listeners would make that a class field trip? That the two of us, I would even tell our boss at Odyssey, like, I would do some of Michael's show with him, and Michael can do some of my, like, if the listeners and the bosses want to send us to New Orleans, Michael and I will make it worth everybody's time. That's all I'm saying.
Burden we're willing to carry. I do need to note, though, my mojo may not work down there. Last time I was in the Superdome, Josh Norman was getting torched by Drew Brees on his way to setting the record for all-time passing yardage.
I do remember that game. I was also at that game. Commanders haven't had many good trips to New Orleans, but then again, the Commanders haven't done much good over the last decade and a half, and this year's a little bit different. What impressed you most about yesterday, besides your own attendance?
B-Rob, man. Brian Robinson being healthy, running over people, and it's cliche, but that's how you're going to win games when it gets cold here, right, is being able to run the ball, establish the run. Loved Cliff Kingsbury's schemes, getting him open. Titans seemed to play right into it early. You saw a lot of counters, and the O-line was so good, right? It's all part and parcel of the same thing. You had a lot more John Bates yesterday in there blocking. We can talk about that. I think he's probably a little underappreciated. But you get Cornelius Lucas on the O-line. They don't miss a beat. I think Biotish is amazing. That first touchdown run, they pick up the stunt perfectly, throw the hole open. B-Rob goes sprinting through it. You see that burst. That was everything I wanted to see. You throw in Terry catching a pass from the right side on the first play, right? That first drive was somehow everything I wanted to see during the 3-hour game condensed into a nice, tidy 3 minutes.
Yeah, the fact that I kind of forgot how quickly the B-Rob thing happened. Like, I was watching the tape back, I was like, oh, right, it was the third play of the game that he scampered for 40 yards. I think there's so much to talk about with this offense, obviously, and just how dramatically different that it looked. I think the Robinson element is probably the biggest. Like, if you rank Jaden's health a healthy and productive right tackle of some variety, whether it was Wiley or Cornelius Lucas, all due respect to Trent Scott, not Trent Scott is kind of the point here. And then Jaden's health, B-Rob, anything else. Like, what to you is the biggest thing that changed that you're really hoping? We need this thing to stay right the rest of the year.
Health is crucial, and the bye week is going to help, obviously. It's a good time for a bye week. A couple weeks ago would have been a good time for a bye week, too, but now's as good a time as any for a bye week. This is not a team that has had the opportunity to build depth over a series of years, right? They will. Adam Peters will build depth and is actively building depth, but this is not a team that's positioned to withstand losses the way some of your elite teams do over the course of a season. This is a team that's still growing and figuring out its roster and needs to make quite a few draft picks to replenish the cupboard. You think about, with Forbes being cut, all the first rounders are gone now. That opportunity to build depth over a period of time has not happened here. And so it's maybe more important for these guys than other teams, not to suggest there aren't areas where they have depth. You saw that with Lucas. You saw that with Chris Rodriguez. But on the whole, this is a team that's still building out its roster and will be for a little while.
When you think about how Cliff calls games for the rest of this season, and obviously we can talk about next season or however long he's here at some later date, but just for the rest of the season with this group, is there anything that you really want to see early in games? Because I think the other common thread of some of their blowout wins, as we're talking with Michael Phillips, MP on the mic, 10 a.m. to noon on 910 The Fan in Richmond, which you can also listen to on the free Odyssey app. But when you talk about their blowout wins, Michael, they get up early. Their defense can play differently. They're forcing a lot of teams that have bad quarterbacks or questionable quarterbacks at best to throw the ball a ton, abandon the run, and that just all of a sudden the points start to stack. So knowing that you have to get up early, if you're Cliff, like, does that change anything for you and what you would be doing approach-wise for these final 4 games of the season?
Well, each game is going to be its own thing, too. I think this is a fascinating final stretch. Real big picture, I think 10's the number. I do. I think if they get to 10 wins, they're probably in the playoffs or more likely than not in the playoffs. That's obviously not a guarantee, but I'd feel pretty good if they could get to 10. So you got to split. If you need to win in Dallas, you need to win in Dallas, and that's a game that I would expect them to take care of business in, especially after the loss here. That leaves you the other 3, New Orleans being the best opportunity there, Philly being a team that's very much still playing for the bye. That's going to be a tough one. But then that Falcons game is fascinating. I don't know who Atlanta's quarterback's going to be. I don't know where they're going to be in the standings. I think that's just an all-timer of a December game here where both teams are going to have something on the line. You're going to have so many storylines. There's going to be a lot of different wrinkles there. Now, you mentioned, right, needing to strike first or strike fast. I did love how they finished the game off yesterday, right? When they get the touchdown in the 4th there to seal it with Chris Rodriguez. They did hold them, I felt, at arm's length late, which was nice because when Tennessee cut it to 28-10, then got the ball back and it looked like they might have a scoring drive, only turned into 3. There was certainly that nervousness that, are we going to have a tight finish here today?
Sure. But then they are able to just continue to ride it out, and the game is actually never within striking distance for Tennessee, which was nice. And they've had a couple of those, like even the Giants game, obviously their last win before yesterday. The Giants kind of kept it close, but they never had the ball with a chance. And obviously that game could have technically been a blowout win. I can't remember what the threshold is, but the Commanders have about as many as anyone in the league, and they could have had one more because they took a knee on the 1-yard line at the very end of it. When you talk about the Final Four here, what's the thing that you feel most confident in with this team, and what's the thing that you have the biggest question mark about with this team?
It feels like cheating, Craig, to say my biggest question mark is the kicker, because they need a new kicker.
By the way, did you see that they signed Zane Gonzalez? I'm not pulling your leg. They signed Zane Gonzalez off the practice squad. He's going to kick for them.
I hope they pull his leg, make it a little longer or something, whenever he needs to make some field goals. No, I hadn't seen that. That's not really the update I was hoping you would give me here.
Nope. Sorry. I just delivered the news, Michael. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't shoot the messenger, all of those.
I will not.
Thank you.
All right, so that's not a question mark.
Oh no, it still is a question. It's very much a question mark, Michael. It's just we know the current kicker. It's still a question mark. It's not who is the kicker. It's Zane Gonzalez? Question mark.
Zane Gonzalez? Question mark. I like that. The strength is number 5. It's Jaden Daniels. It's his ability to deliver in crunch time. If they're close, I love that kid having the ball and making throws. That second touchdown to Terry yesterday to make it 28-0. What a beautiful throw that was. I mean, when he's on, he's on. And I know he had an interception. I know there are throws he wants back, but he's still playing at a really high level, and he's added the running back into his game. And that's ultimately the kind of difference maker you need in these big games, coming down the stretch. My question mark is probably defensively how they're going to hold up against the run. They're going to face some teams with some really good backs. You're looking at back-to-back weeks of Saquon and Bijan, who are both outstanding. Can you get that defense holding up late in the season, late in games to deliver the stops you need to get? I think that's a question mark for me.
All right, last thing for Michael Phillips, maybe. And I say maybe is because you tend to know these types of things, so I'm going to pick your brain while you're here. And if you don't, you're like, actually, I don't know that, then we're done, Michael. Do you know the flex rules for Week 17 and what can and can't be flexed?
That's the Atlanta game. That game can go to. I'm sorry. I'm just making sure you were talking about the Atlanta game.
Yeah. This is the Atlanta game. So there's like 6 games or 5 games that are date TBD, but there's also a set schedule with a bunch of games that kind of suck.
We are in the potential Saturday window. They will choose 3 games to play on Saturday, December 28th, and we are in the group of 5, of which 3 will ultimately go to Saturday. I do think that you've got some. I don't know if they're all duds. I think Broncos Bengals is maybe. You got a little star power there. You got a couple of quarterbacks.
So the games that are currently on that flex list are Denver at Cincinnati, Arizona at LA. That one's going to get flexed. Chargers at New England. Maybe, but seems unlikely. Indianapolis at New York. They want to flex that one to the moon. And then Atlanta at Washington. My question, though, is can also that game potentially be flexed to Sunday or Monday night?
It can, and I'm looking at the schedule here.
Because the Sunday night currently is Miami at Cleveland, and that's a hard pass. And then, frankly, Monday night, Detroit at San Francisco, with the way the Niners are going right now, if I'm ESPN and I can get Atlanta, Washington, I think I'd much rather have Atlanta, Washington.
I think that I think Lions Niners has a fighting shot to stay because you got Detroit's star power there. They seem to be moving the needle. They may be playing to lock up the bye in San Francisco. I agree with you. Dolphins Browns is coming out of Sunday prime time. Cowboys Eagles will stay. That game will get protected. You have Packers Vikings earlier that day, though. That is a juicy one. Could definitely see a scenario where Packers Vikings moves its way to Sunday night prime time. My best guess would be it ends up in a Saturday solo window, maybe the Saturday primetime game. I know nobody likes coming out on a cold Saturday night, but if I were to take a guess right now, that would be my guess. Would be you'd end up Saturday night.
Yeah, I think that's a good guess. I think my guess rankings would be Saturday. Yeah, probably Saturday night. But at Arizona LA game, if they can get that one later in the afternoon, they might put that one at night and then the Washington game in the middle, that 4:25 window or that 3 o'clock window, however they do it. It's a weird, that Saturday is always kind of weird, funkily timed. And they've had some great games, by the way. That a couple of years ago, that was the Vikings 30 whatever point comeback against, I think it was the Colts. So they've had some good games in that window on that Saturday. And if I'm Washington, I would much rather play on Saturday and have a week and going into week 18 probably than Monday if I got to pick a short week somewhere. But obviously if they can get Sunday and we'll see if it's Sunday night or whatever, that's certainly gonna be an interesting one to watch. All right,
I want to say because we've been in that Saturday flex window a lot the last few years, and this may just be my memory being faulty. I feel like every time they've been in that flex window, they've ended up going to Saturday.
I don't remember any Saturday games recently, but my brain is broken, Michael. So, who knows?
You raise a great point. Cardinals Rams, of course, is the only West Coast game of the group. So you would have to play that at 4:30 or 8. I feel like I would love a Saturday game in the sense of, the other team's got to travel on the short week. You get to reload, get ready for that finale in Dallas where you're probably going to need to win to clinch. It does feel advantageous for them to play earlier that week.
Yeah, for sure. And apparently I'm reading Pro Football Talk. That decision might come out today or tomorrow. I think the decision is due today. This is 20, or actually this was written a couple days ago. So I assume this comes out tomorrow. Very, very soon because it's a 28-day window to flex games. So unless there's special rules for week 17, I do think that we're getting that very soon. So TBD, but we'll have The way this works is the second you hang up, Michael, we're going to get the news.
I got to look at the kicker news. The only one they can do on 6 days' notice is week 18. Obviously, those are all fully TBD. And that might also be a compelling reason to not take the Commanders to Monday night, because that Commanders-Falcons game may decide if the Falcons and Bucks are playing for a division title in week 18. And you wouldn't want to leave that kickoff time and TV hanging in the air until Tuesday, because that domino could knock over a bunch of other ones.
That is a great point as well. I think Sunday night's potential in play there for sure. I think Minnesota Green Bay is probably the most likely game that gets flexed into Sunday night. Put the Commanders on Saturday, but I think that's definitely possible. Okay, that's enough television talk. Michael Phillips will be back on your radios tomorrow. You can listen to him on the free Odyssey app. Just search 910 The Fan. MP on the mic, 10 a.m. to noon. Michael, thank you for your expertise all around and, of course, for your attendance.
My pleasure.